You may get a prompt on your side. Go ahead and hit OK. And I know we have a number of you guys that are here from Sean Bowles' group. And so if that's you, let me know in the chat if you're from Sean Bowles' group. He gave me the honor of talking to one of his mentorship groups on podcasting. And so it was perfect timing because I'd already planned this webinar. So it's perfect timing to have you guys. But let's jump into this. And I'm going to share my screen with you guys real quick. And here we are. Okie dokie. Well, I'm so excited to have you guys. You guys are actually getting access to one of my first times to share this material, which makes me so pumped because when I started as a podcaster, I lived on these free webinars because I had no idea what I was doing. And so when people made these free webinars available, I was so stoked, and they actually gave me a lot of great material. So my mission in putting this together was to give you guys material that is actually going to help you. We're going to move through it quickly, but I don't want you to confuse that for not important. And also, you guys, for any of you guys who have the workbooks, I have it printed out over here. If you have the workbook, the blanks and the worksheets for you are meant to be filled out on your own time, just because we don't have time to do it here on the call. But we're going to move through all this material while we're here. So if that sounds good, say I'm here for it. Drop that in the chat. It's a good way to see what you got, where you guys are at. But let's dive into this good stuff. Okay, so this workshop is, as you guys already know, 5 things that you must know to start a podcast that makes an impact, or to start a successful podcast. I kind of had 2 names for it. These are things that I have learned from my years of podcasting that I learned the hard way, or that when I was struggling through, how do I grow my audience? How do I get my podcast in front of more people? These are some of the most important things that I still utilize to help the exposure of my podcast. For those of you who are maybe interested in podcasting, but you're not committed to the idea yet, I'm hoping that this will give you a little taste of just kind of that world behind the curtain. For those of you who are committed, or maybe you already have a podcast, these will be tools that you can use immediately, and they'll really bring life to your show. So I want to introduce myself. I'm going to do it real quick. We won't take a lot of time to hear about me because I want to get to the meat of this. But I want you guys to just think about, especially if you don't have a show, what it's going to be like once you have a show and you're able to tell people, I'm a podcaster and I am saving you with the material I'm teaching you today. I'm literally going to be helping you shave months or even years off of your learning curve. And I can say that because this is stuff I learned over the course of years. So a little bit about me. I'm Jenna Lee Samuel. For those of you who don't know me, I've been a podcaster since 2017. But I really started kind of getting my rhythm and figuring out what I was doing in like May of 2020. So it took me a good 3 years to get a rhythm and get a groove. I'm a mom of 4 teen boys. They eat everything in the house possible. My husband is a pastor. We just became senior pastors at a church that we've been serving at for a number of years. And I started coaching podcasters, honestly, because people started reaching out to me asking for help when they started seeing the success of my show. And it just gave me excitement to think that I could help them shorten the learning curve and start a show that would help get their voice out there. It took me, like I said, 3 years to learn everything. And honestly, that learning curve, I shed so many tears in the process. It almost kept me from having a podcast because I just kept thinking, surely it's not this hard. Like, what am I missing? But there were no coaches then that I could pull from that I knew of. And so I definitely had the struggle bus version of the process, and I want to save you that. I want to empower your voice while helping remove the frustration and the time and the wasted money. So if you're here, you're definitely in the right place. If you're ready to stop daydreaming about having a podcast and you want to actually start one, no more excuses, no more confusion. You're ready to take some action. And I already know from some of you that have shared, that's where you're at. If this is for you, if you know you don't just want a podcast, but you want one that is successful, that actually reaches people and actually serves your business goals, if you have one, or just your mission, your personal mission for getting your voice in the world. If you're ready to make 2024 your best year yet, where you make your dream happen, I am going to be sharing with you at the end how I can help you start your podcast. Now, a lot of webinars, we know there's like a sales pitch at the end. So I'm not pulling any hoods over your faces. Like at the end, I will share with you how you can work with me, because honestly, if you want to get a podcast up and I can help you, it would be really unkind for me not to let you know how I can. Not everybody is going to, and that is totally okay. So if you don't work with me, that's okay. I hope this adds lots of value to you. And if you do work with me, amazing, because we can help get your show up in 2 days. And I'm going to tell you how in a little bit. Now, this workshop is not for you if you didn't realize it was a workshop about podcasting. That's what we're doing here today. If you don't know what a podcast is, or you hate podcasts because maybe you prefer blogs, then this would not be for you. You are welcome to stay just because we like you, though. But here's some tips for today's workshop. While you're here, the only reason that you have my permission, which of course you can do what you want, but I would say put your phone away so that you're not distracted. But you are welcome to, and I invite you to, even maybe now, to pull it out and snap a picture of what we're doing, and then throw it on Instagram and tag at Java with Jen. And then you can tell the world that you're listening. And then I would love to see who is listening on social media. I'll be resharing if you guys tag me, I'll reshare you on my Instagram. But have your workbook handy. The second thing, have your notes in your workbook handy, because we will be going through it. You're going to want to take some notes, and then you're going to want to work through it a little more intentionally after the fact as well. If everyone can make sure they're muted, that would be super helpful. I think there's a couple things coming through on the other side. And lastly, if you do make these posts, just tag at Java with Jen on Instagram, and that's the best way to notify me of your posts. Okay, so what you're going to be learning today, you're going to get clear on who your podcast is for and what problem it solves to attract listeners. And we're going to brainstorm that just a little bit, but that's actually going to be you're going to dig even deeper on your own time with that. But then you're going to also uncover how consistency, your aesthetic, your audio quality, and promotion of your show are key elements to have in place for maximum growth. All of these things really, really matter. And then thirdly, how podcasting can actually grow your business or create a great platform to start a business. So lots of good stuff. And so that's why we're going to move along. Now pay attention, because at the end, I'm going to show you this episode planner that you're looking at right here is something I actually created for myself early on in my podcasting journey, and I've seen other podcasters post about this struggle online, where they get overwhelmed about how to be organized with their show, about how to have their guests strategized and how to plan ahead and how to plan content and all this stuff. And I had the same struggle. And so I created this planner, and it's actually multiple pages where you can plan quarterly, monthly, individually, your financial goals, your big goals. It's got a whole bunch to it. And this is a bonus offer that's included in what we'll be talking about today if you decide to work with me. So this is something that will be included. So just stay tuned. I'll tell you more about that later. Okay. So the reason I started a podcast, a little bit about myself, I'll make this very brief, is that for the longest time, I did want to have a podcast, but before I had one or had the idea to have one, I actually knew that I was called to preach from a very young age. And I had lots of opportunity, actually, ironically, when I was young and single. But then I married a pastor and moved to Texas, and suddenly I had no opportunities to preach. And it was pretty heartbreaking, because I thought, we're in full-time ministry. Surely I should be able to preach. But whether it's the culture here, whether it was my husband's culture coming from India, or whatever the factors were, I found myself feeling incredibly stifled and frustrated. I was also having lots of babies. So I was drowning in diapers and all the things. And so I felt like my gift was being wasted, just sitting there stagnant, unable to be used, and I didn't know how to develop it. So finally, after about 10 years of like crying, I decided I'm going to start a podcast, because I've got to steward my gift. And podcasting felt less scary, less intimidating. I could do it kind of quiet, behind the scenes, and not let people know about it if I didn't want to. And so, but after the 3 years of learning all the things and getting overwhelmed from all the advice that I found online, I actually never really figured out. I didn't know if I was doing things right for those first 3 years. I didn't have anyone telling me, yes, do this, don't do this, stay away from this will help you. Yes, you're doing it right. You're a legit podcaster. No one was telling me those things. So I didn't know how to orient entirely, which was fine. I learned, but I struggled. It was very hard. And I oftentimes was like, why are other podcasters having so much success and I am just over here on the struggle bus? So after 3 years of piecemealing everything together, having what I had and hoping for the best, I started to see some success. I learned from my mistakes along the way. I started seeing some success. I started ranking in countries and I started ranking globally as far as like top 10%, top 5, top 1. And as my success became apparent, people started asking me for help, as I mentioned earlier. And so I was like, yes, let's help you out. But some of the mistakes I did make along the way, and you may relate to these, one was learning from too many people. I was excited about all the resources that were out there, but a lot of them weren't even podcast resources. They were just online business resources. So I still had to filter what I was learning. And I just know it got to the point where in my inbox, all these email lists I had subscribed to, I started to be like, I would get mad when I would see them in my inbox because it just stirred up so much confusion and anxiety. So of course I started unsubscribing from everybody. So that was one mistake. I had too many coaches and too many voices with all their different opinions and philosophies, and it just made the clarity harder to obtain. And so that was one mistake that I made. I also was too cute and creative with my titles. A lot of people do this. They think that your titles need to be cutesy and eye-catching, which yes, they need to be curiosity-inducing. But if they're unclear, you're not using good keywords, then they're not going to be effective. And we'll get into that in a moment. That was one mistake that I made. And then I also had the belief that if I build it, they will come. And that is absolutely not true. Not when it comes to building an audience. You have to be strategic. And so one moment when I realized that my whole business was changing and that this was creating an opportunity for me to help people was when my husband and I were traveling to Houston, and he asked me if I could help him set up a podcast because he knew I had mine. And so we were in the car and I said, let me see what I can do with what I've got here on my phone. And literally within 5 minutes, I had created his artwork. I had named and subtitled his show, created a description, and got it up on Spotify. And I was like, what in the heck? Why was that so easy for him? And it took me so long. And it's because A, I learned a lot of things, but B, I realized I can help people shorten this learning curve significantly. So maybe you could relate to some of this. Like, has the process of learning how to podcast been overwhelming or confusing? Like, what equipment is actually necessary? What is not necessary? I don't want to waste my money. Once I create my show, how do I know people are going to listen? How will they even find me? What if it's not good? What if I'm missing important pieces and I don't know it? One of my clients or one of my students, he's in my network now. He tells me all the time, he's like, well, Miss Jen, I don't know what I don't know. So you teach me what I need to know. And I'm like, okay. And so that's really how I felt. And that's the scary part of not having someone to help you. And so I actually only spend about 2 hours running my podcast every week. And so I can help you get set up, teach you how to streamline the process and keep it simple. That is my philosophy. Keep it as simple as possible. So are you guys ready to dive into this material? Just drop a heck yes, I'm here for it in the chat. Say, yes, I'm here. We're going to dive into this stuff. And so you're going to want to turn to the chapter 1, if you want to call it that, in your workbook. That's where you can follow along. So the first thing I had to learn, which I did not utilize for the first 3 years of my show, is that you have to have your 3 Ps in place to attract your audience. And that is the people you serve. You need to know who you're serving with your show. The problem you solve. If you don't know what problem you're solving with your show, then nobody else will know what problem you're solving, and they won't know if they need your show or not, right? And then the third thing is the promise that you make. So when we're serving someone, people are going to come to us if they can see I have the ability to alleviate pain in their life or to solve a problem in their life. That is the number one thing that makes people sit up and listen, is when you have a solution to a problem that they have. That's literally, because that's how our brains are wired, is to save me, to survive, to get out of pain. And so that's the number one thing that makes people sit up and listen. So when they see that you have the hope for the despair that they're in, they are going to come to you. So my podcast was called Java with Jen. That was the title. That literally tells you nothing about what you're going to get on my show, right? And that bothered me, but I didn't know how to solve it. And so I eventually in season 4 added to it the subtitle, Hearing God's Voice for Everyday Life. So implied in the title is people who want to learn to hear God's voice. That's who I'm serving. The problem I'm solving is I'm helping them learn how to hear God's voice. And the promise I'm making is that it's something that can be done in everyday life. And so my subtitle, once I added that, those keywords are in there. And so now if you search Hearing God's Voice, I'm always in the top 4 podcasts that come up. And my listenership went up by about 30 to 40% within just a couple weeks, simply by adding that subtitle. So if you are trying to create a show, you need to keep that in mind. Your subtitle is essential, and it's okay to use as many keywords as you can. And so that will help attract people to you. So for example, some people will be like, I'm gonna have a fitness podcast. My show is gonna be about fitness. Well, that's okay, but that's an industry. That's not a niche. That's not your specific people that you're serving, right? And so instead of, I want to have a fitness podcast, you could say something like, I have a podcast where I help busy moms, that's who you serve, get fit, that's the promise, in 15 minutes a day with macros, micro workouts, and meal planning. So the problem they're solving is you're helping them get fit. And then the promise you're making is that I can help you do it in 15 minutes with macros, micro workouts, and meal planning. So now if I come along that podcast, it's not just a fitness podcast. It is a fitness podcast for moms in 15 minutes who want to get fit with these 3 things. And so now it's very clear to me if you're my ideal podcast to listen to or not. And so the 3 P's are what you need to implement when you're creating the identity of your show. Okay, number 2 is the growth magic of consistency and frequency. Now, consistency, write in the chat why you think consistency might matter. Well, okay, it's on the screen. Never mind. I didn't make that very hard for you. Okay, consistency is key to building trust and retaining your audience. There we go. Forget the chat. It's key to building trust and retaining your audience. Why? Because if you're solving someone's problem, it's kind of like if you go to your favorite store, you want to know what their hours are, right? Because that consistency builds a relationship with the customer, so the customer knows when they can expect to come to you to help solve their problem. Same thing with a podcast. If they know you're going to be publishing every Tuesday at 5 a.m. so they can listen to your podcast on the drive to work on Tuesdays, they're going to come expecting that. So your consistency matters. If you're publishing here, there, yonder, it will only take a couple times of them coming to your show to see if you've posted a new episode, only to find you haven't yet. They're going to grow discouraged and go, oh, well, they're inconsistent. And so they'll learn to stop coming to look for your content. Whereas if they know it's coming on a consistent day at a consistent time, it builds trust and will cause them to keep showing up for your material. Now, the other thing that I have found from observing lots of podcasts is that frequency of your postings does impact your growth. I have found that shows that only post once a month grow much more slowly, and mine was an example of this, than shows that post weekly. I have found that a real momentum kicker is when you post twice a week, actually. And so some people will have like a lengthy episode for their first one and maybe a summary episode for a second one, or something that's on a subtopic, or something that's just more shorter and more of a microbite as a second episode in the week. There's lots of ways to do it, but frequency does impact your growth. And so what I tell my students is do what you can sustain and do consistently as frequently as possible. So if you cannot maintain 2 a week when you're first starting, don't do that. Don't shoot for that. Start with what you can maintain consistently. I have the student Mac, he works 70 to 90 hours a week, and he does his show on a monthly basis because that's what he can maintain. And that's okay. And he's still rocking it. He's still doing amazing, and he's still in lots of countries and doing a really great job. So you do what you can maintain. I have another student, Krista. She decided to do 2 a week, and within 6 weeks of her show launching, she's already the top 10% globally in the world, and she already had ranked in like 4 countries. And so frequency really does impact that. And this is where my planner sheets come in that I'll tell you more about in the end, is you can plan ahead and strategize your content. It allows you to stay ahead of your schedule. That way you can be more consistent, and your frequency doesn't feel like such a burden. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I want to make sure that we don't take up too much time with this material. I want to get to your questions if you have them. Okay, the next one is make them shop with their eyes. It is important that you brand your show. A lot of people don't realize how important this is, but the number one way people are going to encounter you is they're going to see your artwork before they ever listen to your show. They don't care about your content. They care about what they see. People make 80% of their decisions with their eyes. 80%. That's why they spray wax on our apples at the grocery store. That's why they put so much into marketing. That's why I was in a marketing department in college. And when they were going through all the people present and recruiting who was going to be in their department, they told us they picked the pretty people because we were the ones that represented their brand. And they said, when you go places and you represent us, pretty people attract people. And so we want pretty people in our marketing department, which I thought sounded so superficial. But I realized it is just the utilization of this principle. People make 80% of their decisions with their eyes. So if you have crappy artwork, your show will not do well. If your artwork looks unprofessional and your logo, you don't have a logo, you don't have consistent colors, fonts, and imaging, your show will not look professional. And what that tells to people who encounter those things is it tells them they don't have their stuff together. They don't actually maybe know what they're talking about. So branding is important because it conveys to people that you come across that you know what you're doing, you're professional, you've done your due diligence. It sends a lot of messages that we don't realize. So what you want to do if you're not branded or if you're still working on it, you're going to want to have professional looking artwork. There's a couple ways that you can do this. I do teach my students how to do this. And in my 2-day coaching, which I'll be telling you guys about in a moment, we actually work together on the call. And I work with you to make sure that your artwork looks professional and your logo. We make them together in the coaching. So you don't have to guess, you don't have to wonder, you don't have to go hire someone to do it. I do it with you and it will look good. And so that's a real perk of working together. Another thing that you can do is have brand photos taken. If you guys saw in some of my images, I was in this blouse and it's because it's one of my brand colors. I'm wearing pink lipstick. I'm staying very on brand today, actually. But I did those photos with a friend of mine. She didn't charge me anything. And I just made sure that what I was wearing in the pictures were colors that are part of my brand so that when I use them online, there is just a very subconscious, low-key consistency about the aesthetic of my brand. Now, as a former wardrobe stylist, that is what I did for many years. I've styled 9,000 people. Here's what I can tell you. When you're choosing your clothes for your brand pictures, wear solid colors. Do not wear prints. The camera does not like prints so much. You have to be very choosy if you're going to use a print. So just stick to solid colors. Okay, next one, number 4. I hope you guys are enjoying this so far. Feel free to drop in the chat if you're enjoying this. Feel free to drop in the chat if you have any questions. They may come to your show with their eyes, but they are going to stay with their ears, okay? Your audio really does matter, but it doesn't have to be complicated. So one thing I've noticed new podcasters will do is they'll dive down the rabbit hole of audio equipment. They'll learn all the things they never knew, but they still don't really know what's most important. They'll realize everything's very expensive. They'll either get overwhelmed by the expense and the options, and then they'll never make a decision, or they'll buy all kinds of stuff that they don't actually need and don't know how to use, and they waste a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of resources. So you don't have to make audio complicated. There are some simple ways that you can make your audio sound quality. One way is to always listen back to it. That kind of goes without saying, but listen back to it because you will catch, oh, my intro is a much louder volume than my recording. I need to sit closer to my microphone next time. You know, there's little things that you can adjust that way. The essentials for recording is very simple: a microphone, headphones, and a padded room. Not because you're losing your mind, but because sound bounces. And so a padded room could be something like recording in your closet. Recording in your car is a really great option as well. Or just in a room. I did for a long time, I would set a pillow on my desk behind my microphone and a blanket on my desk to just kind of absorb some of the sound. That worked fine. And so there are little ways that you can do this. When it comes to audio, I'll be honest, your iPhone actually does a great job. when I did not have a laptop for 8 months, I recorded my episodes straight into my iPhone like this. I just would talk into it. I turned on Spotify, talked into my mic, and the quality was pretty decent enough that I felt like I could do it. And I ranked in countries during that time. So the quality was not bad enough to chase anyone away. It actually was really decent quality. And so you can do that, but do not use the Apple AirPods. Don't use those. Those are terrible. Don't even do it. Lastly, you can use Audacity online for editing, for basic audio editing. It is a free editing software that a lot of top audio producers and stuff, they still will use it because it's a really great tool. So you're welcome. That's free. That's a really great tool to have in your belt. Okay, number 5. One of the mistakes I made, I told you guys about, is I believed that just because I built it, they would come. And this is not true. You have to market your show. You have to. If you are not strategic about getting your show in front of people, they won't. Some people will accidentally find it, like 5 or 10 people will accidentally find it. But in general, you have to do the hard work of getting in front of people. In fact, the Holy Spirit told me one day that marketing is actually part of faithfulness, because kind of like in the Bible where it says that, you don't take a lamp and hide it under a bushel. You put it up on top of the hill so everyone can see it. Well, you have a lamp now. Your podcast is your lamp, and you want to do what you can do to get it up on that hill so people can see it. And so there are some little simple tips right here that I'm going to tell you. Now realize the average podcaster has a lifespan of only 7 episodes. And Sean had shared with his students that, I don't remember what was the specifics around what he said, but I think it was like a lot of podcasters only make it to even less than that, like 3 to 5 episodes. And that's because people get discouraged. They put a lot of work in, they put a lot of time and money and energy in, and then nobody shows up to their podcast. And so I want to encourage you. The trajectory of growth for a podcast is very slow and steady. It is the journey of the tortoise, not the hare. And so just be prepared. It's going to go like this, but if your overall trajectory is upward, you're still growing. So don't be discouraged. But here are some tips for growing your show and marketing it. 1, get on other podcasts. Okay, get on other podcasts because you're going to get exposed to their audience, and then have other guests come on your show. There are some very simple ways to find those shows and get on those shows, and I teach my students how to do that. I give you a template for pitching yourself, and I'll also show you where to find those people. And so I make it very simple, but getting on other shows and having them on your show is one of the best ways to not only gain exposure, but to build a community of fellow podcasters. It's really nice to not feel like you're doing it by yourself, right? Another tip is to use social media and have an email list. They're both important because, and I suggest choosing one social media channel wherever your ideal audience is hanging out. That's where you need to be. If you're speaking to business people, be on LinkedIn. If you're speaking to moms of young kids, be on Instagram or TikTok. If you're speaking to a 40s, 50s demographic, be on Facebook. So you want to be where they're hanging out, because social media will get fresh eyes to your stuff, but your email list is how you nurture a relationship with your audience. On social media, only 2 to 6% of people see what you post, of the people that follow you. So it's very, very low. Like, why is nobody responding? Because nobody's seeing it. However, if you do a reel or something and it goes viral, or it pushes out to thousands of people, that's oftentimes going to be non-followers that are seeing your stuff. And so that's where it's easier to get fresh eyes on your stuff. And then an email list, usually the open rate for emails is anywhere between 40 and 60%. So that's a way higher turnover on the time that you put in, and it's a great way to cultivate relationships. So both are really important for finding and building your audience. Using SEO and smart keywords, I kind of talked about it earlier. This is really important. Like I said with my title, just adding in a few keywords boosted my listenership. It's because it makes it where people can find you. And so when you're titling your episodes, you're writing the descriptions of your episodes, use strategic words. Think through, what are people searching when they're looking for this kind of content I've just produced? You can use all kinds of tools to help you, and I teach my students about the different tools that are out there to help. But using smart keywords is essential in growing your show. And then lastly, publish to multiple platforms. A lot of hosting sites will do this automatically, or they'll already provide a number that you can push to. And so it's already kind of built into the process, but making sure that you think through, like I had to manually submit my show to iHeartRadio and Pandora and a number of different ones that weren't built into my hosting site. And so as soon as you find out there's a new podcasting platform to be on, put your show on it. And so those are 4 of literally the most essential tips for growing your show. So if you have a show already, really dig deep on these because they're going to help you. So this is the 6th one, which is a bonus that you won't hear any other coaches talking about, which is have an intercessory team. I decided to include this when I was driving down the road last week. And I think I had just texted my intercessory team and they had prayed and the Lord responded and opened doors, and it was amazing. And I thought through the many ways that they have prayed and the Lord has responded and my show has been blessed by it. And I realized it would not be the same experience without an intercessory team. And so there is nothing that you can do with your own 2 hands that will replace the value of having people praying for your show, right? And so on your workbook, I've got 3 different ways that you can build an intercessory team. It's pretty simple. Again, keep it simple. The first one is you can connect with Hollywood Prayer Network. I've actually had their founder on my show multiple times. I went to lunch with her in LA or in Long Beach a couple of weeks ago, or in February, and she's a precious woman. And they have a spot, in fact, I have the link in your workbook, where you can go on there, and as a media personality, when you have your podcast, you can apply for an intercessor. They have assigned me an intercessor, and every so often I will just text her and let her know. We've gotten on Zoom calls, we pray together. She is such a blessing. I also have an intercessory team here that's local, plus an actress from LA that she was on my show and we prayed her in. She came into the faith through our prayers and us reaching out to her, and she's just a beautiful woman. And so my sister, and there's a few other people on my intercessory team. So you can ask for a small group of people that you know personally that care about you and they're in your corner and they want to see you succeed and they believe in the power of prayer. Just ask them if they wouldn't mind being your designated intercessory team, that you can send them prayer requests from time to time. This has made all the difference. And so this little thumbnail that you see here, this is from episode 8 of my show. I had been going for a number of months. This is around my 8th month. And it just was on my heart. I wanted to have a celebrity on my show. And so I texted Donna, the head of the intercessory team. I said, Donna, would you pass the word along? I'm praying for a celebrity guest. She said, sure, you got it. I'm on it. And so they prayed. And literally the next day, I was on Instagram going through stories and I see Manuel Reyes, and I follow him and his wife, Angela Johnson. She does the Bon Qui Qui stint. I saw him asking questions in his stories about podcasting. And so I started responding because the messages were open. We started a conversation. And so it went on for a few minutes. And then at the end, he was like, well, thanks so much for your help. And I said, hey, before you go, it's always been my dream to have you and your wife on my podcast. Would you be interested? And he was like, you know, she's busy. I can't speak for her, but I'd be happy to. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I called my sister. I'm like, I've never had a guest over the phone. Quick, help me figure this out. And so I had to figure out how to record with him and trying to figure out how to fake it till I made it, you know, and look more professional than I was. And he came on the show. We had a wonderful conversation. You can still go back and listen to it. It's episode 8. But that happened because I had intercessors praying for me. And I can't tell you how many times my show has experienced a breakthrough because I had intercessors in my corner. And so your prayer team at church is a really great way to find some intercessors who might be willing. And then, of course, have your show on your own prayer list. And so that is really, really, really important. If you're not a person of faith, that's okay. Find people who are and get them praying for your show. It still works. And so if you're not a person of faith, though, and you'd like to learn how to be, contact me, email me, and I'll walk with you. Okay. Lastly, we've covered a lot, guys. I know it's a lot. It's like drink from a water hose or fire hose. But be sure to drop your questions in the chat. If there's anything that you're loving that I'm sharing that's like a light bulb moment, let me know in the chat because I'd really love to see what is hitting you guys and helping you guys. But real quick, if you are a business person or you want to start a business and you're curious how podcasting can help with that process, here are 3 simple ways that can help you as far as your business, how podcasting can serve your business. Okay. So remember 10 years ago when businesses all started blogging, right? They all started blogging. Blogging was like all the rage. Everybody was on Pinterest. Everybody was pinning blogs. Everybody was following blogs. And businesses realized, hey, this is a space where people are. It's a great way to serve our clients. Why don't we blog? Well, now businesses are all starting to shift towards podcasting because it's a great way to serve their audience, and it's a great way to prove and verify that you are an expert in your industry. But people are consuming podcasts in a different way than they consume blogs. And so businesses are shifting. The space where podcasting is right now is kind of like maybe 15 years ago when YouTube was starting to take off and people were unsure about it, but starting to jump on the bandwagon. That's how podcasting is right now. It is, the trajectory of growth is actually really kicking off. But the beautiful thing is, because so many podcasters only last for 3 to 7 episodes, the pool of experts is actually still pretty small. So it's a lot easier than it ever has been because the listenership is going up, people are finding you, to become a big fish in a small pond. Okay, so it's actually a really ideal time to start your podcast. You can establish yourself as an expert. That's one way it serves your business. It is a personal way, which I love, to serve your clients and your prospective clients. It positions you as a go-to expert and it builds trust. So I follow Jenna Kutcher. I follow Amy Porterfield. I have bought Jenna Kutcher's course, and I plan to eventually maybe buy Amy Porterfield's course. In fact, Jenna Kutcher's course, the one I bought was the one on podcasting. I knew 98% of the material in there. I think I walked away with one tip that I didn't already know, and it was a great tip. I was like, well, I just paid $400 for one tip. That's awesome. But I was able to get insight into what she was doing. And I would still buy more of her stuff because it's really good. But I follow her podcast, and her podcast serves me and it blesses me. And so I trust her. I know that anything she puts out is going to be valuable. And that's how having a podcast can serve your business as well. And it also serves to bring in new leads and create revenue streams. I teach my students 12 different ways that they can monetize from podcasting. And I also teach you how it can be something that brings in leads. Now, you guys are in a good place in that if you already know what your business is, it makes sense to create a podcast that serves your business and works alongside your business. My podcast came first and my business came later. So my podcast audience and my business audience are two different audiences. So for me, I have to get really creative to use my podcast to serve my business in that way. But that's simply because my podcast came first and my business came later. If you already know what you want to do with the business, it's easier to use your podcast to feed it. Okay, so the next page that you guys have in your workbook is your take action steps, and you're going to want to work on this after the fact, but I want you to write down your next best steps from what you learned today, what's been percolating on the inside, and I'm trying to hurry so we can get to questions. What's been percolating, you're going to want to write your next best steps. And here's the truth. You do not need to continue guessing and piecemealing, wondering, trying to figure out and feeling overwhelmed in order to get your podcast started even this month. Like, I'm not joking. We can get your podcast up this month. And that's the beautiful thing. Here's one of my clients, Tiffany. She's the one who had a podcast already when she had come in, and well, I've had multiple, but she's one of them. And so here's what she says. She says, 2 years into running my podcast, I realized it needed a fresh start. With only a few episodes released, I was eager to revamp the entire show. Throughout the course, my confidence soared and my excitement for relaunching the show reached new heights. Although it was a lot of hard work, I'm thrilled to share my show's listenership has already doubled in just a week and a half since my relaunch. Huge thanks to Jen for being my guide on this journey. Your wisdom and support will undoubtedly keep propelling me towards my goals. So when she came to me, she had already had a 2-year-old podcast that only had 300 downloads. 300 for 2 years of work. I would have probably given up at that point. But she was like, no, I know there's a way to make this work. So she joined my mastermind, which I don't do my mastermind anymore at this point, but she joined my mastermind and I helped her rebrand, revamp, re-strategize, figure out how to market her show. And within, I think, only 2 weeks of her launching, she had already, well, here, a week and a half, she had already more than doubled. I think within a month, she had like tripled or quadrupled what her downloads were going in. And so she's well past the few thousand downloads mark. And she has been so encouraged by the momentum that she's experienced. Now, this is Kira. She went through my mastermind, and she actually was a full-time working mom with 3 kids and homeschooled those kids. And she decided it was a good idea to start a podcast. And so she'd always dreamt about starting a blog or starting a podcast or doing something like that. And so when she saw me doing my mastermind, she decided to jump in. She and I have known each other for years. And so she says, coaching with Jen put me leaps and bounds ahead of where I would be if I tried to do this on my own. She saved me a lot of time, tears, money, and frustration by taking me by the hand and setting up every little step along the way. But by far, the biggest benefit to taking her course is the opportunity for continued learning even after the course is done with her podcast network. So the podcast network, I actually started because people like Kira, when they went through my mastermind, they got their show up and they had learned so much, but they didn't want to feel like orphans. Now that they had this show, they didn't want to just be off on their own. They were like, Jen, we want to keep working with you. And so I created the podcast network so that they could continue working with me and have a sense of community at the same time. Now, when I share with you today about what I'm actually making available to you guys today, the podcast network, your first year's membership is totally free if you sign up with the program that I'm launching out today. Now, I have actually looked into podcast networks in the past. One that I looked into joining was like $6,000 a year. Mine is $197 a year. It's like way cheaper and way more doable because I want it to be affordable. I want it to be something people can do. When you have a new podcast, you're not making a lot of money from it yet, right? So I want it to be very doable. So maybe you're stuck in this cycle, which we've kind of already hinted at, where you brainstorm your show, you turn to YouTube University or all the other podcasts, you get excited about all the options, you get a lot of vision, and but you start to feel a little confused from all the experts' different voices. And then analysis paralysis, or the rabbit hole, sinks in and overtakes your thinking processes. And then you quit before you've even started. Maybe you guys have literally lived this process. I know I definitely did. Except I didn't totally quit. I could have quit. Actually, I did. There's lots of days I quit and then I just came back to it the next day. So this is how I can help you, because I want to help you get out of that process. And if you're not ready to leave that process yet, and you're like, I'm just not ready yet, that's okay. But when you're ready and you're like, I need to start a show, I'm tired of wasting time, I'm tired of spinning my wheels, I'm tired of wondering if I'm doing this right, this is how I will help you. Step 1, we just get on a call. And that's actually what you could put in your next best steps. That could be your first one, is get on a call with Jen. And then we see if this is the right program for you for right now and where you're at. And I definitely do not tell people, yes, this is for you, if it's really not, because I have coached with people who I was not their ideal client, and it's very frustrating. So I really only want to take on people that are ready for this process and ready to run a show. Step 2, from that call, you would enroll. And you would, because you were on this call, there's a $500 coupon bonus for you. If you upgraded to the VIP, which was what, $17, right? If you did the VIP pass, there's a $150 coupon in there, which I paired with the 500. So it makes a $650 of savings for my program. So that alone makes it worth it. And then step 3, we would launch your show within 2 days of coaching, which is over the span of a week. So essentially we have a setup call, and then we have a setup call where I get you set up for the coaching. We have a full day of coaching, 7 to 9 hours. There's a week for you to work on some of the things we can't do on the call together, like recording your first episode. And then there's another day of coaching. And by the end of that second day, your podcast is published. In fact, for a number of people that I've done this for, not only is their show published, but I help them set up their email list with an email sequence and a landing page so they can actually start building their email list out the gate. In fact, I think I help them set up their social media account. Like, we do a lot more than just get your show up. I set you up for success. And so literally in 2 days, I mean, that is like the best. I wish I'd had someone doing this. I was like, I would have signed up yesterday. So here's how I see it. You could continue piecemealing and building your show and possibly missing some elements. You might figure it out eventually. I did, and so you could keep going that route, or you could get step-by-step custom help from me to get your show up without the guesswork. Just it saves the peace of mind. It saves the chaos. It saves the lost time and the lost money. You could keep spending money on equipment and platforms and software that you might not need. There is a learning curve regardless, but I've gone before you, and I can tell you which ones are essential and which ones are just a waste of time. Or you could know exactly where to spend your money and where not to, right? Save that money, save that time. You could keep guessing at how to grow your show and find your audience, or not, but guessing being the key word. Or you could get my expert guidance on how to maximize your growth potential, like I helped Tiffany and like I've helped so many of my other students. You could keep spending years wondering and missing out on how to create income from your show, or you could learn how to set up and create income from the beginning. There are some things I teach my students that I teach them, hey, at this phase of your podcast, this is how you can make money from it here. This is how you can make money as your audience grows. This is how you can make money when your audience is big. And so there's different ways you can make money at different stages in the podcasting process. And I teach my students, especially in the 2-day one, this last client I can think of, I told them exactly how to get started so they could start creating some money out the gate. So being honest, if you've been doing something you've been trying isn't working, I want to help you fix that. Because truth be told, you do deserve to have the show that you've been dreaming about. And it doesn't have to be hard, right? It doesn't have to be a struggle. It will be work, but it doesn't have to be a struggle. Oh, my picture's not loaded over there, darn it. So I want to explain to you about my 2-day podcast jumpstart. It's an intensive, which I call it that because the 2 full days of coaching is a lot of hard work, but it's good work. It's energizing, actually. And so in this 2-day intensive, like I already explained, you have your intro setup for success call, the 2 days of coaching, and then after about a week or two, once you're running your show, you're getting your groove, we have a follow-up call. That way, if there's anything that you find is tripping you up or that you can't remember from the training or whatever, we can make sure and tie up any loose ends. So now this comes with full access to my digital course, which the digital course is going to be a deeper dive. If you want to dive deeper on the marketing side or dive deeper on the branding or dive deeper on any aspect that I teach in it, then you have full access to those videos. Those are the videos that I took all my previous students through. You've got your episode planner sheets, which I help you with. And then, of course, you've got your first year's membership into the podcast network. That way, you've got people you can collaborate with, people that you can grow your show with, people that you can get ideas with and collaborate. And it's just such a great little family. And then, of course, you've got the workbook that comes with the digital course. It's 135 pages of resources. It's incredible. If you see this template back here, this workbook is full of templates because I want to save you time. And so anything I've created that I use as a template now, I put it in the workbook. And so it's super resourceful. So there's tons of Canva templates, there's email templates, there's just tons of good stuff in there, even how to strategize your monthly emails and stuff. And so that is what comes in the 2-day podcast intensive. Now, if you do sign up today or within the next 48 hours for this, I'm also going to throw in something extra, which is an AI training, because you guys know AI is everything right now. And I have come to love AI. In fact, the Holy Spirit told me if I didn't pull AI into my business, I was going to get left behind. And he told me that before everybody was saying that. And so I have actually been very intentional and strategic with AI. It saves me time in planning content. It saves me time in planning resources that I can sell or that I can give away as freebies. It saves me time in strategizing my social media material. It saves me time in writing descriptions for my episodes. It saves so much time. And so I will include an AI training. So as I talked about, your set up for success call, 2 days of coaching, the membership into the podcast network, and your momentum booster call. Now, the podcast network you not only have a community, but I actually do group coaching in there every month. And so I also drop resources throughout the week, like maybe more Canva templates or expert suggestions or whatever. And I will have sometimes on those group coachings, I've had guest coaches come in. I also network with people in the industry who create music or market podcasts or whatever. And I have relationships with those people. So they cut me deals that I can give to my students. And so you get access to all those awesome perks in the podcast network. So here's everything that I had just explained is included, plus the value of these additional things is over $600. Okay, now we can get on to our questions. Let me stop sharing my screen for a moment. How are you guys doing? It's 12:53, so we don't have a ton of time, which actually, hold on, before we get into our questions, let me just show you real quick. One more real quick back to this. These are some quick Q&As I put together. Okay. I do want you guys, we're going to do the questions last because I want to make sure we get all this in there. I do want you to think about this. Think about, like, literally let yourself daydream for a moment. When you stand in front of somebody and you hand them your business card and tell them, I'm a podcaster, why don't you listen to my show? It's so much fun. I will go to airports and leave my cards everywhere. When I'm in offices and there's restrooms or magazines sitting out, I'll leave my little cards out. I keep my cards with me because I hand them out constantly. And so imagine when you're going to be able to do this. It positions you as an expert, and it's such a beautiful way to feel like you can serve people and bless them without any strings attached. It's just wonderful. Imagine when you start getting messages from strangers that you've never met and friends who listen to your show and they share how it's impacted their life in a positive way. I have had people tell me about marriages restored and people going into ministry after listening to an episode of mine. And I've heard one person, she said, I can't listen to your show anymore. And I said, why? She goes, because God always talks to me and he always pushes me on my comfort zone. And I'm like, girl, you better keep listening. And so people sharing about how I had one series on activating angels, and I had a number of people let me know they did it and they got incredible increase in their income at work. They met the person that they were possibly going to be marrying, all kinds of different breakthroughs from people listening to my podcast episodes. That will be you. That literally can be you getting your voice into the world, stewarding the message that God has given you to serve people. It's powerful. Imagine having a bunch of authors and experts in your phone that you can text. I literally do. In fact, this lipstick came in the mail yesterday from an author who was on my show. She sent it as a thank you gift. And so it's such a powerful way to reach the world. So if your next best step, if let's say you're interested and you're like, yes, Jen, I want to work with you. I want you guys to know this. And I am not just saying this. I'm only taking 3 to 5 people because, as you can see, these 2-day coachings are very time intensive, very time intensive. I don't actually always have this 2-day coaching accessible and open because of the fact that it's so time intensive. It's not always accessible. But I did this webinar because I wanted to open the doors and let people know about it, give you the option. So if you sign up in the next 48 hours, you'll get the AI thing. You can use this promo code. It's promo 500 to save $500 at sign up. But the next step you'll take is to book a call with me if you're interested. Booking a call is not a commitment. Booking a call is we get on the call, we discuss where you're at and see if this is a good fit for you. And if so, we then move you forward into scheduling your calls and all of that. And so you'll be able to take advantage of the promo 500, or if you did the VIP, there is a promo code in the VIP where you get $650 off. So you guys might want to register for that after this. It's in your email if you would like to take advantage of that. And then you would just get accepted and we would start. And so you can go to javawithjenpodcast.org to book that call. I am taking first come, first serve. So there's a number of you guys on here. If I get 8 people booking a call, I'm going to go in chronological order. And so if the first 5 people are ideal clients, I'm taking those first 5. So if you want to book a call with me, I would do it as soon as possible because I'm just going to take first come, first served. And I can only take at max 5. And so I just wanted to put that out there for you guys. Here's the AI thing that will be your bonus if you join in the next 48 hours. Lastly, this 2-day jumpstart, is this for you? It is. If you're ready to dig deep, do the hard work. It is hard work. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We work hard, but I'm right there with you, and I will walk with you to get your dream podcast up and set you up with all the right tools. If you're tired of wasting time and you want your show up like yesterday, this is your great opportunity. And then you can see, this is for you, if you can see how podcasting creates an incredible platform for changing your life, building your brand, expanding your business, and serving people, right? This 2-day coaching is not for you if you're still playing with the idea of a podcast, but you're not committed to it yet. I want to save you the time and save you the money. It's not for you if that's where you're at. If you're like, yes, I think I want to do this. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. I've had people get on there that weren't sure, and we were able to, like Kira, I asked her some strategic questions, and I was actually able to unlock some things that she didn't realize were there. And then she got clear. Yes, I'm ready. So even if you're not 100%, but you still feel inclined, then go ahead and book that call, and then we'll just figure it out.
How do you feel, girls?
Okay, so this is a clip that I took from one of my most recent 2-day jumpstart clients, and they are actually right here. Oh, is the picture not loading? Well, gosh darn it. So the show HGTV's Battle on the Mountain, they actually heard me on Sean's podcast. They called me. Their show, Battle on the Mountain, was going live on HGTV very soon, like in 3 weeks. And so I told them about my 2-day coaching, and they took advantage of it. And so this was me filming right after we had pressed publish on their podcast. Lamari is the one on the left, and she stars on that show with her husband, Tony. And this was their reaction after they hit publish. They were kind of stunned.
This feels so surreal. We did it. Yeah, it was weird. We got excited.
Oh, I'm so excited for you.
Yeah. All that hard work. So how do you feel?
They were so excited. They were just giddy. They were the best to work with. And so you guys should go check out their HGTV show. So, okay, there we go. Now we can get to questions. But if you are interested, I'm going to encourage you to book a call now. Go to javawithjenpodcast.org, get on my calendar, because I'm going to prioritize the people that are on there. We're going to take our calls, and now we're going to take some questions. It is 1 p.m. If you guys need to get off, I 100% understand. Anybody who would like to ask some questions, you're welcome to stay on and ask some questions, and we'll move through as many as we can. Julie, you said the website didn't work, javawithjenpodcast.org. Drop in there and let me know. Stephanie, thank you.
It says site can't be reached.
Site can't be reached. Okay, the link must be broken. I will fix it after this. Let me drop a link here, actually. Then I'm going to drop the direct one. If you want to book that call, here's the direct link to my calendar. I'm sorry that other one's not working. I'm not sure why that's happening, but you can go, here's my Calendly link. So if you want to book a call, it's in the chat right here. I apologize for that. You tried to book when I was on Bowls Academy, but it would not let me. Okay, I apologize, guys. I did have an issue with, I just moved my domains, and so that may be part of the back end issue. I apologize for that. Feel free to use my Calendly link right there. Mark says, define ready. How many episodes should I have outlined or storyboarded before I move towards launching? I recommend having 3 to 4 episodes up. One of them needs to be your About Me episode, just like an introduction to who you are. People will love listening to those. And then 3 to 4 episodes. That way, when they come, when you do launch, then you have a few that they can binge through. If you just have one, it'll feel like, oh, I want a little bit more. So I would say 3 to 4 episodes. That way they've got the ability to binge listen. And then when you launch, it just feels a little bit more well-established. That answer that question for you, Mark? Jessica, why don't you unmute and you can let me know what are some of the questions you've seen coming through? if she's still there. Jess, are you there? She might be tied up.
I'm
Okay.
here.
Oh, there you are.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We were just having questions about the cost of the intensive.
The cost of the intensive. Oh, guys, I'm so sorry. I realized this morning I forgot to put that on there. So the intensive is $29.97. With the $500 discount, it brings it down to $24.97. And then with the additional, the VIP coupon, it brings it down to $23.47. Now, I don't know if that's sticker shock for anybody, but let me just give you a little perspective. I hired my first coach that it cost me $3,000. And I never got a single call with that coach. She gave me one of her other coaches, and it was a 4-month program, and it was just a group setting. It was never a one-on-one. And I was so mad. I was literally ticked. I paid $3,000 and I was not her ideal client, and I never got the coach. I paid $1,000 for another coach, and all it was 4 Zoom calls, and they were an hour and they were a group setting. Never got any one-on-one feedback from her. It wasn't until I paid $12,000 for a coaching program that I got one-on-one Zoom calls that were an hour at a time every other week. And so for me to give you 2 solid 8 to 9 hour days plus the bookend calls is incredibly valuable. And I have been told by other coaches that I'm basically giving it away at that price. But the reason I do that is because when I was starting, the idea of spending $10,000 or even $2,000 to hire a coach was frustrating and was discouraging, because I just felt like I didn't even know if if the money was going to be worth spending. And now I can look back and say, yeah, the money is worth spending, because these people accelerated my growth. Even the one that I was frustrated with, I still was able to extract some valuable stuff from. And so the price that I'm doing is to make it affordable as far as what you're getting for it. There is a monthly payment option at checkout. So if you don't want to pay the whole price up front, they have the monthly payment option that is there. And so I'm trying to make it as doable for people as possible, because it is 110%. You're getting way more value than what I'm actually charging for it. And so, oh, Memphis, you're so sweet. We appreciate you, girl. How long is this event? Oh, today's? Yes, it was 1 hour. Thank you, Jess. Okay, any other questions?
Those are all the ones that weren't answered.
Okay. Let's see. You guys are fun. I love seeing y'all chatting over here, getting to know each other. Okay, so any questions? You guys are welcome to unmute. If you have any questions that you didn't pop in the chat, feel free to unmute if you've got anything top of mind. We'll take about 5-10 minutes. If nobody has anything, then amazing. But I would encourage you guys, grab my Calendly link. It's over there in the chat. You can book a call with me. And I will be also the VIP. You guys have seen that in your email. The VIP pass gives you the ability to have this replay for more than 24 hours. Once I get it loaded up online, I will send out an email so that you have access to it. I'll post it in the Facebook group. You'll have access to it for 24 hours, so until tomorrow afternoon. And then it will be taken down, and then just those with the VIP pass will have access to it. With the VIP, okay, Mark, yeah, send me an email. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here, buddy. You'll also not only have the replay, you've got that extra coupon, and then you've got my podcast identity course, which is to help you get the ball rolling on brainstorming what you're going to call your show, who it's for, those 3 Ps. We're going to work through that. So that was voted by my students as the MVP class. So that's why I chose to make that the bonus for the VIP pass. So I will be quiet. You guys can ask any questions. Feel free to unmute. Trisha, you got anything?
No, I'm good. I already signed up for a coaching session or a phone call.
Oh, yay. I'm so glad. Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything come through because I've got everything muted. So I don't know what's happening over there, but I'm glad. I'll be able to meet you and get to know you a little bit. Joel, good to see you, buddy. You got any questions?
None at the moment. Thank you.
Excellent. Where are you coming from, Joel?
Minneapolis.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Excellent. It's good. I love seeing all these people that I have never met before. It just makes my heart happy. Julie, where are you coming from?
In Orange, California.
Oh, okay. So you guys, I'm assuming that you guys all found out about this from Sean's program, right?
I did, yes.
Okay, cool. I know he was such a sweetheart to have me on there. I've gotten to know him a little bit this last year, and he's such a blessing. I mean, I've been following his ministry for like 15 years, but that's amazing. Well, if you guys don't have any questions, then you're welcome to jump off and head back to your day, but I will be keeping an eye on my calendar, and whoever pops in there first, I'll be getting on those calls. I can't wait to get to know you guys. And
I have a question. It's
Yeah,
just
go
more
ahead.
of a curiosity.
yeah, go ahead.
I noticed, like, if I did a search, I don't really see anything about like your family or your husband. Did you do this intentionally with your podcast in order to keep like your family life separate or private? You know what I'm saying?
Yes. I do talk about my family on the podcast, but I'm not gonna lie, when I first started kind of putting myself out online, I would wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes with like anxiety of like freaky people coming after my kids, and so it just kind of like made me really nervous. And I know that's fear and whatever, but there's also a place for wisdom. And so for me, just until maybe my kids are older, then maybe they'll come on a little bit more. Now, if you dig far enough, you will find my husband, and from the church websites that we've been staff, and we've also got Free Life Missions. So we have a missions organization that you can find that. But in general, I am pretty discreet with my family, just for privacy's sake, because they didn't ask this for this path. I chose
Yeah.
it.
I guess I'm asking that question because typically I minister to women in marriages and wife, like supporting women as being wives. What's it mean to be a wife? How do you love your husband well? Well, sometimes I feel like that can be such a public space. And so I think that's why I've been tiptoeing around the podcast thing, because I recognize that I want to be wise in protection of my personal life. So then that's why I'm asking that question, because it's like, oh, you somehow did this, where I feel like anyway, so that was kind of why I was asking that question.
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. And actually, that makes me happy to know that that was what you found, because I've been trying to, keep it, but I a lot of times feel like the internet, you can find anything on the internet, and so I've thought about using a pen name, to be honest. Just I don't know, maybe it's just fear that makes my brain go there, but I know too many people in Hollywood, that have experienced crazy stuff. My sister lives out there, and I don't know, I'm just always trying to think ahead. And so
yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that's it. Because I'm like, well, I feel like that would be something I need to navigate, right? Like that line between having a public persona identity, but still maintaining respect and honor of your own marriage, your own relationships, and so forth.
Yeah, we could. Did you book a call with me?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, if you plan to, we could even talk about that when we're on the call a little bit, because I do have some thoughts and ideas for you. Because I do feel like there's always a way to, because I've shared some very personal stories on my podcast, but I do it in such a way that I don't share who exactly I'm talking about. And so I think there are ways to navigate that content in a way that's discreet, but and protects the people that it's about, but can still share your honest story,
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. That's a good question. Evelyn, I'm glad you made it today. Evelyn, oh, you're muted, baby. Evelyn popped on our Zoom call yesterday afternoon, and I got a notification, and I was like, hey, sis, it's tomorrow. You're in a whole nother time zone. See you later, Joel. Are you leaving? See you later, buddy. Evelyn, where are you coming from?
In the UK.
Ah, okay. So what time is it over there?
Right now it's 7:15 in the night.
Oh, not so bad. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're here with us. Did you have any questions?
I'll probably book a call.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
but at the moment, no.
Okay. Sounds
Mm.
good. Well, listen, if nobody's got any questions, then I'm going to let you guys get on to your days. I appreciate you staying 15 minutes past. Oh, go ahead. Trish,
Oh,
you
I do have a question. Oh, I just realized my mic was way over there.
Oh.
I do have a question. I was been talking to this, my husband and I, we pastor a church out here in Kelowna, BC. And we were talking about doing a podcast kind of for marketing purposes, but everyone always tells us we need to do a show together. So that's why I'm here. So when I do the call, can he be on the call too, or how does that work? And if we sign up, can we do it like together, or how does that work?
Yep, totally. When I had Lamari and Tony from the HGTV show, they had 4 of them. And so,
Okay.
yeah, in a lot of ways it helps because then you've got 2 brains working on the same project. Sometimes it goes a little quicker that way.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Yeah, and he's a technical producer, so I said to him, we've got all this gear, we should use it.
For
So
sure. Good, good. Yeah, totally. He's welcome to be there. Excellent. Well, good deal. Well, you guys, it was lovely to have you all. Thanks so much for coming. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on here. I hope that the content was valuable and gave you a lot of food for thought and a lot of learning. Memphis, you are so welcome, sister. I hope this was helpful for you. I loved webinars when I was learning, so I'm just hoping that it served you guys right where you're at. You guys have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for joining me. See you in the email.